Hi, everyone. Billy here. I just wanted to talk about a few things, especially with your game design document coming up in a few weeks. I posted this to the sandbox, and I also posted it to our class. Interesting game topics. And I just wanted to talk about a few of these, just to give you an idea of what your game design document might be like, or if you wanted to do something different. Also that these are just topics for like current and future of gaming. AR, MR, VR, mixed reality. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere in games. This has been going on for 25 years now, and it hasn't taken over. So I doubt that this would be a really good topic for you. I think that there's just a big problem with having technology fused with our experience in playing games. It's too difficult. And I actually had one scientist tell me that it's actually on par with sensory deprivation. So it's good for things. You know, virtual reality is great for museums. It's great for forensics, military, pilots, um, medical field. That there's all kinds of really great uses for virtual reality. But for games, I'm seeing a lot of people put a lot of money in it, but it isn't going anywhere. All right, so that's just the first topic that I wanted to talk about. Remember that there are a bunch of game engines out there. Every platform has its own game engine. Unity is the biggest one. So if you are thinking of going into games, consider learning Unity. It's a really great application. 4K, it's great. 8K is really great. We will see if games pick up on 16K. It's just the level of depth of pixels that you can get in the screen. But remember that what you're looking at on any given performance level is that the game engine is only rendering what your camera sees. So just keep in mind that you could boot this up to 32K as long as that the camera was only rendering things that you saw, and you wouldn't have to worry about losing memory. A couple of things about games. The Human Genome Project was at a standstill for many years, and then they used gamers to solve it a few years ago. They just put it out there, and I think that it's something to just think about. The power of how many people are playing level can be a really, really great thing. This topic comes up here and there now and again. There is absolutely no correlation between the violence in games and violence in real life. It's proven. It's science now. Do not let anyone ever tell you that playing shoot 'em up video games is going to turn you into a violent criminal. It's just, there's no data. It's absolutely the opposite. In fact, the idea of being able to play a game and master the controllers is really great for surgeons. It's really great for pilots. There's a whole bunch of really great real life world statistics that are involved with the goodness of games. And none of them ever point to anything in violence. All right. So I think that I wanted to put these notes in here because it's just a few things that you may not have had exposure to. A buddy was playing with a game with his buddy who was 5,000 miles away, and he had a seizure, and his buddy didn't know what to do, so he called 911 in the hometown where that guy lived, and the paramedics came to the house. The kids who was having the seizures, parents were upstairs. So that's just one of those really great things about the interactive world of games. Many actions in games are determined by an algorithm called ragdoll physics. It's something that you might want to think about. How do things fall? How do you kill a character? How does it fall? How does it die? Those things are procedural animation, but they're based on weight and gravity and all that fun stuff. But it's called ragdoll physics. Animation is very, very different in games. Very different. Most of the time, you have a walk cycle, which is 16 or 32 frames, and then the run cycle, which is 16 frames, and you just maybe have a transition between or not. And just by pushing on your lever, you make the character run or turn. And all the game is doing is calling up sprite sheets. That's all it's doing. It's procedural. And then when the character dies, it goes into ragdoll physics. Therefore, animation for games is very different. Very, very different. There's no squash and stretch in games. If there's squash and stretch in Cuphead, because it was drawn in 2D, it was actually drawn on paper, on 2D, in paper, in Toon Boom, and then some of the in-betweens were done, and then that game was all 2D. So there's no squash and stretch in animation or in games unless you build it around the game. There are no anticipations. A character does not take a slight motion the opposite way before they go their main direction. It's just not possible. There are no overshoots. There's no staging in games. Staging is like you figuring out what the best look for where the cameras are supposed to be. I've seen notes that say there is staging in games, but no, not at all. Not like theatrical staging. It's just whatever you get. There's no easing into or easing out of poses. So this is the difference between animation for films, short and long, and games. There is no easing out, easing into or easing out of poses. And then the big one, there's no story in games. Stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And most games do not have an end. So therefore, there's no traditional story in games. I'm just putting it out there. You can argue with me all you want, but you're going to lose. Games do not have traditional stories. All right, many actions in games are not even animated. If you're playing a sports game, it could be that Steph Curry is mocapped. They just capture his motion with a camera and they translate it directly to his 3D rig, and those become the sprite sheets. So that's all the difference between animation and games and film and media. Couple other points. Guitar Hero made a lot of money for a lot of bands, more money than they had made in their actual careers. And that's something for you to think about, something for you to think really deeply about, the power and the impact of games. All right, and then on to your game design document notes. When designing a game, avoid feature creep. Feature creep is you start with an idea, you start with a big idea, and then you start adding details. And oh, this will be good, and oh, this will be good, and you add this and this and this. So whenever any of my game students are designing their final game design document, it's one of the things that I wanted to always make sure I put in there. Avoid feature creep. Feature creep is a real thing. It's like you keep throwing things into the game, and it just makes it more complicated, even up to and including the point where the game doesn't even work that well anymore. Okay, right now in 2022, the game industry is worth about $200 billion. Just something for you to think about. And in the Bay Area, there are at least 150 game companies, at least. Pokemon Go is not a game. My director at the Academy of Art University is the executive director of the game department, will argue with you. Will argue with anyone that Pokemon Go is not a game. He calls it just an app. So go back to those original definitions of rules and strategy. Rules, strategy. Can you cheat? The things that define a pure game. So it's just one of those things where I wanted to put out there because it's a good place to argue about. I don't think Pokemon Go is a game. All right. Oh, and then in Pokemon Go, you should be able to kill the characters or try to obliterate them if they run away. Especially if you spent lots of balls and lots of fruit trying to capture this one particular character and he runs away. He should show up on the map and you should be able to try to kill or obliterate him. That would be my topic for my game design document. All right, and then there's always more. There will always be more in games. It's never ending. It will never stop. Those are my notes. I'm going to post this on YouTube, and I want you all to read this, watch it. It's a short video. And then I'll give you points for it within the game itself. Thank you, everybody. Email me if you have any questions about your game design document.